This is Jonah Pearson, and you are listening to the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast.
What's going on, guys? Josh Kirby here with you for the first episode of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. Today, we'll be getting into the Redskins' first three preseason games and the injuries they have had so far, what my thoughts are, and how I feel about Adrian Peterson. And later on the show, I will be having my boy Josh in the studio with me talking about the Washington Capitals Stanley Cup run. So far, first three preseason games for the Redskins, they are 1-2 with a win against the New York Jets off 5 field goals from kicker Dustin Hopkins, and the other two losses are from the Patriots and the Broncos. Patriots lost 26-17, and the Broncos lost 29-17. In the first week of the preseason, Darius Geis made his short debut before tearing his ACL, and I just got to say, that was really crazy. Like, I expected great things from Darius Geis this year, and he's gone for the season. Tore his ACL. It was crazy. And Redskins also have injuries on running backs with Byron Marshall and Samanje Pirine. They got out. Rob Kelly's healthy, and Martez Carter got waived because he was another rookie, and he got injured as well. The Redskins decided to bring in Adrian Peterson as a veteran presence in the running back spot, and I think that's really good for them, having Adrian Peterson there. But after 2 knee surgeries, I'm not sure how well he'll perform, but I'm glad he will be there for Rob Kelly and Samanje Pirine when they come back, and Byron Marshall, all the young running backs, because we really didn't have a veteran presence last year. So hopefully, I wish Adrian Peterson the best, but I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. But and the second game, there were a few more injuries, I believe. That's when Byron Marshall and Samanje Pirine and Martez Carter got injured. Wide receiver Trey Quinn, I believe he returned. Yes, he did return that game after getting knocked out. The wind knocked out of him in the first game against the Patriots. And in week 3, the Redskins faced the Broncos, and they called that a dress rehearsal for the Redskins. Jay Gruden did, and I thought it was something short of a dress rehearsal. It was terrible, because if it was a dress rehearsal, oh my gosh, like Alex Smith only went 3 for 8. Kevin Hogan, our third string, got most of the snaps, only throwing 7 for 9, 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Adrian Peterson started that game, 11 for 56 yards, but no touchdowns. But all of our touchdowns came in the air. Some running backs I don't even know. Like, these running backs I don't even know. Hopefully, I'm not sure. Like, who are these kids? Darvin Kidsey and Simi Cobbs? Like, I don't know. I haven't been watching that much, but I've never heard of these two. Well, we can get all the help we can get, but who knows what it will look like cuts-wise. And some news I found out yesterday, the Redskins signed a 4th-string quarterback. I'm not sure why, but he is from the Shepherd University. What was his name again? Yeah, I forgot his name. I just had it on the tip of my tongue, too. Who was it? I totally forgot. His name was on the tip of my tongue. It's coming to me. Hold on. It was Connor Jessup. Yes, that's who it was. He's from the University of Shepherd, right up the road from where I live, and I really don't know why they did that, but the Redskins did that, so hopefully it will pan out. But I'm not really sure. The fourth preseason game for the Redskins will be on the 30th, which is on Thursday, against the Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore. And funny story, the Baltimore Ravens picked up Robert Griffin III, former Washington quarterback, and it will be to the Redskins' luck if RG3 ends up beating us, but assuming he gets some of the most of the snaps, because the Ravens also have Lamar Jackson, two dual threat quarterbacks who can run and pass with the ball. But I'm not sure. I've watched RG3 in the Hall of Fame game. He had I think a touchdown in that game. I'm not really sure. That was a while ago, but RG3, hopefully he will be successful. I did like him as a Redskin, but getting thrown into the system with Shanahan and then tearing his ACL, he wasn't the same after that. I'm hoping that in the Week 4 matchup against the Ravens that Alex Smith gets a little bit more playing time so I can see how he actually looks, because I feel like Alex Smith has been underplayed in the preseason so far. But another thing, I agree with the Redskins for not giving him that much time, because who knows, maybe Alex Smith could be injured. Knock on wood. Yeah, knocked on my wood floor there in the studio. But hopefully that's not the case, and hopefully the Redskins can get one more preseason win in Week 4 going into the first week, bringing them momentum. Their first week regular season game, it will be at Arizona, and then their home opener will be against Indianapolis. I wasn't planning on talking about this today, but how about the Nationals? It looks like they're clearing house, putting Bryce Harper up on the waivers, and Daniel Murphy shipped off to the Cubs, and Matt Adams shipped back off to the Cardinals. I think the Nationals are ready to start over. Bryce Harper, luckily, he stayed. I'm not sure if he'll stay in the next season. I hope he does, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Washington Nationals are rebuilding. I do not think playoffs are in the question for the Washington Nationals, and they are in third place. They just beat the Mets last night 15-0, and they played the Mets, and they are playing the Philadelphia Phillies in a 3-game set tonight before Milwaukee comes to Washington to finish off August. And then September, they finish the 3-game set against the Brewers. The Cardinals come to town with Matt Adams. I'm interested to see how that will play out. Then a 4-game set with Daniel Murphy and the Cubs. Then they're going at the Phillies, at the Braves, 2-game set at the Marlins. Mets come to D.C. for a 4-game set. Marlins with another 3-game set, and finishing off the regular season at the Rockies. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe a sports miracle could be pulled off, but I highly doubt the playoffs are in the question for the Nationals. Okay, enough of talking about the bad crap that DC Sports puts me through, and let's talk about the good stuff. The Washington Capitals. After 19 years of my existence, I can finally say a DC team won a championship. And what a series it has been. I'm here with my boy Josh. He came into my studio today. Josh, what's going on?
What's up, man?
Oh, man. So, huge Caps fan here. Huge Caps fan for me too. And what do you think about the whole playoffs? How it went down? How they won?
Well, I certainly didn't think this would be the year they won the Cup out of all the years. Considering the team they had the past 2 years and the off-season departures last year of Shattenkirk, which I didn't think would keep him, but Shattenkirk, Justin Williams, some of the main pieces that ended up getting lost. You just didn't think that it was going to be going their way this year, but cast of young players, and they made stuff happen, had a little more speed.
Yeah, those young players really did step up. Like Kempney, Verana, man, they stepped up big time.
And Burakovsky came up big in the Tampa series towards the end there in Game 7.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was actually lucky enough to go to the Game 2 watch party, and that was completely free.
Stanley Cup Finals, right?
Oh, yeah, Stanley Cup Final. That was the greatest moment of my sports life. But besides going to the Redskins-Vikings game last year when they choked in that game, I mean, that was crazy. But, Capitals, let's just run through this series by series, and give our thoughts about it.
Well, I can give a very good account of Game 1 because I was there. So, looked really good going in. Got to the game, and we actually got a little bit late because traffic was so bad, but didn't miss any goals. And that was when I can't remember who it was on the Blue Jackets. I can't remember off the top of my hand, but I want to say it might have been Calvert, but I could be wrong. But anyway, one of their guys got a 5-minute major for boarding Michael Kempney. That game. Michael Kempney didn't initially return to that game, but Michael Kempney got boarded from behind, and that ended up being a 5-minute major. And then the Capitals, after that, proceeded to score, I believe, 2 goals in a row on the power play. One from, actually, mark that, 2 from Kuznetsov on the power play. And it looked like things were going great. And then all of a sudden, as the Capitals always do, and DC teams always do, they let them creep back in. And the nerves started, and they, had 2 great goals that got them back into the game. I believe both of them, if I recall,
went into overtime,
and both of them were on the power play in the first game. So first game, 2 goals in the power play, and then I had a front seat view of the unfortunate but beautiful goal by Artemi Panarin in the first game in overtime. And similar story. Game 2, go up by a couple, and let them back in, and then I believe. I can't remember. Maybe it was Calvert. Maybe he wasn't the one that hit him, but I think it might have been Calvert. I'd have to check here real quick. Who put him in from behind?
Yeah, but
he scored in overtime in the first game.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, because it was like a fluke goal. I mean, it was like the puck kicked out in front, and he ended up one-handed putting it into the net. And it was just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but the main story going into Game 1 and 2 is Barry Trotz putting in Philip Grubauer instead of the beast Braden Holtby.
Which at the time seemed like the right decision, right? Because, Holtby did not play good going into the playoffs. So I can't argue with his decision initially. And I don't think Grubauer played bad. I don't think he was great. Yeah. But I think he played
better than Holtby.
Played good enough for them to win.
Yeah.
Put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, but they did not. And after watching those 2 games, I felt like we aren't going to get out of this first round. But we ended up running the table on them, winning 4-2, if I am correct, and moving on to the Pittsburgh Penguins. This was our third year. This was the Caps' third year playing the Penguins in the second round. The first 2 years, the Penguins beat us, sent us home, and I was like, this has got to be the same result.
Well, and let's not overlook, going back to the Columbus series, everybody thought they were dead in the water down 0-2. Couldn't win either game at home. And let's just also talk about the fact, if the Danish sweetheart, Lars Eller, does not score that goal in Game 3, and I believe, what was it, double overtime?
Oh, yes.
And it bounced in off him. That could have been the end of the series right there. And I also remember they had a power play in that first overtime that I thought, I was closing my eyes. I thought it was over. I thought for sure if they went down 3-0, we're done. They have a game at home. Yeah. But, that was probably, I would say, in the playoffs. Aside from winning both their games in Columbus, that was probably the turning point of the playoffs right there. Lars Eller, double overtime. I don't care who you are, how much you're up. To lose in double overtime sucks.
Yes.
That's pretty deflating. Yes. So, going, and then I will never forget The next game, I don't believe was quite as close. Game 4, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I believe they beat them fairly handily in that fourth game. And then I know Game 5, back in DC, Backstrom in overtime scored the big goal on a deflection from a point shot by Orlov, which was great. And then Game 6, obviously, ended up being pretty convincing, but there were some stressful moments where it looked like they may come back there. I know Foligno got one to tie it up, I believe, or bring them within one late in the game, but they ended up winning that one. What was it? I think 6-3 or something like that.
Yeah, I believe it was 6-3. Yeah.
But as Josh was saying,
yeah.
We thought it was over. Here they go against the Penguins. If it's different, it's going to be different, but it wasn't looking different when they blew that 3-0 lead in Game 1.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I just thought it would be the same result as last year, losing to Pittsburgh. I mean, they lost their goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, but I think they were still looking good, but that wasn't the case.
Well, and to be fair as well, they were still mainly riding Matt Murray. After our playoff series, Matt Murray, I think, took the reins back last season too. So, Fleury, great story, but yeah, I mean, it was not that first game, especially up 3-0. I remember I was at my hockey game, and my wife or someone on the bench told me. I said, "What's the score of the game?" They said, "Oh, Penguins won," and I said, "What?" I just did not believe it, but they let him back in. Excuse me, and it was. I was feeling pretty nervous that next game when in DC. Yeah. They pulled that one off, but I mean, going through the series, I think I know the Caps were. I believe they won Game 3 in Pittsburgh. That was the one where Backstrom and Ovechkin came down on what I believe was like a 2-on-1 late in the game, and it went off the post. And Ovechkin batted it out of the air in with about a little over a minute left in the game, and that was a huge moment in that series. I think even though they split, I think that win was massive. That was Game 3. Yeah, Game 3. It was, I believe, Ovechkin scored late. In that game.
Game 3 was at Pittsburgh. They did win 4-3. Then the next game in Pittsburgh, they lost 1-3. But that turning point was the 6-3 win, and we had a chance to eliminate them in Pittsburgh. And that was the game I was going off the wall, being like, can we actually do this? Only one goal each in regulation and going into overtime.
Well, and going back to that Game 5, you can't get a much more. That game said 6-3.
Yeah.
That game was a lot more stressful than that. I remember 2 of those, I believe, were empty netters. At the end of that game, I've never cheered so hard for an empty net goal as I did when TJ Oshie scored that empty netter in Game 5. But going to Game 6, as Josh said, I have never been in my life in a situation where the Capitals, I don't believe so. Maybe in the first year they played the Penguins in the playoffs, that would have been 07-08, I believe, maybe 08-09. 08-09, I believe. And that was the year that the Penguins won their first cup.
Yeah.
And they had gone the year before against the Red Wings, and they played them back-to-back years. But to my knowledge, from what I recall, I don't believe that they were ever in a position to eliminate the Penguins that wasn't a Game 7.
Yeah.
So that was
this was huge.
This was a huge deal. And I mean, not only that, but we totally forgot to touch on it. The Tom Wilson hit that put him out for a good portion of the series on Aston Reese.
Oh, yes.
Where he broke his jaw.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was
I
insane.
do remember that.
And I mean, that had a big change on the series too, because then I can't remember. I think Backstrom, if I recall correctly, was also out in Game 6 with the broken finger. And well, they didn't disclose it at the time as a broken finger. It was just upper body. But he was out, so we had a lot of guys taking up space. I mean, Eller had to step up big time. I remember we had the Aussie in Nathan Walker in Game 6,
who
ended up making a huge play over to Chason. That was the 1-0 goal, and then the Penguins ended up getting a goal from Letang late in that game. And I just remember when it went to overtime.
I was like, I was
happy.
on the edge of my seat. I was on the edge of my seat, and like my parents went to bed. I was like, if they score here, I'm screaming. I really do not care.
Well, and I just, the main thing I remember about that game, obviously what we're about to talk about, but if you remember in the first little bit of that overtime, I believe it was Tom Kuhnackel of the Penguins hit a post in overtime.
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
And I thought it was over.
Yes, I was like, oh my gosh. Like hockey is a stressful sport, and that just got me on the edge of my seat even more. Like,
Well, game of
I
inches.
was watching.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah,
And-
you get 2 inches in the other side, that's in the net.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that game, and they're
Yeah.
going back to Washington for Game 7. So,
And who knows how that would have turned out.
yeah, let's not talk about
Against
that.
the
But, thankfully, the eagle, the beautiful flying, soaring eagle, Evgeny Kuznetsov, first off, they steal the puck from Crosby, which
Yeah.
makes it even sweeter.
Well,
Knock
yeah,
it off
wh-
his stick.
which I thought was amazing. And I saw Ovechkin pass it up to Kuznetsov, two Penguins defenders off to the side, and he had a lane up the middle. I was like, this is our chance.
It was
this
like
is
the
our
Red
chance.
Sea was splitting, and Moses had smashed his staff into the ground. And here comes Kuznetsov down the alleyway. And even more, of course, it had to be the most capitalist thing in the world. We didn't even know for a few seconds if he scored or not.
Yeah, because
you couldn't see it go in.
Yeah, because Mike Emmerich didn't say anything for a few seconds. I saw a stick fly. I was like, what happened? What happened? Then he said he scored. I was screaming. I was running up around.
It was incredible.
I was like a screaming banshee after they won.
And to see the look on the face of the Penguins was just incredible.
Oh, yes.
The face of defeat. I mean, of course they won 2 years in a row, hats off to them. That's very difficult to do in any sport, to win back-to-back championships.
Yeah.
But that was a sweet moment. That was a very sweet moment. Seeing them be on the other side of that handshake line was incredible. But
It was
of
amazing.
course, the way it went is the Capitals had to go up against what was touted to be the best team in the Eastern Conference by a large
The
amount.
Tampa Bay Lightning. And let me just say, well, by watching that series, I think that was the toughest series in the whole playoffs, hands down.
without a doubt.
7 games. They lose 3 straight, games 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
Then come back and shut them out not once, but twice.
But backtracking, how much of a shock was it that I remember the first couple games, I was like, this is not going to be good. Tampa's at home. I can't see this going well for us. And they blew them out both games. Yeah. I believe it was 5-2 or plus both games. Josh is going to look that up for us real quick.
Yeah,
but
4-2 the first
4-2.
game and 6-2 the second game.
So it was looking like we were doing great. I couldn't believe it. And then, of course, Tampa had to come back, and that power play of Tampa was absurd for the first, I'm going to say 5 games of that series.
Yeah.
I mean, it was deadly. Every time they got on the power play, you knew there was a very, very high chance that someone was getting a goal, whether it be Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point, who was excellent in that series.
They were all really good.
Their
in
power
that
play
game.
was ridiculous. Now, the big turning point in the series, I believe, was, and what kind of got the Tampa Bay Lightning back into it is, and what ultimately ended up being their demise in the end. I don't think he played bad, but Vasilevsky did not.
No,
he did not come up as advertised.
Yeah.
He was very human looking.
Yeah.
In that series, and he did do pretty well. I'll give him a shout. He did pretty decent in those three games that they won in a row. But me and Josh got to talk about this. And look, we got the championship. We're happy. But I just want to, I tell everybody this. A lot of people are Caps fans right now. And you know what? That's a good thing. I like that people like hockey.
Yeah.
However, when Josh talks, me and Josh constantly talk about DC sports and the way fans can be around here. And I'm not trying to name call here, but let me just tell you that the Capitals had not been to a conference championship since 1998 when they played the Buffalo Sabres. And in Game 6 at home, ticket prices for lower level to go see the Capitals Game 6 because all DC fans thought they were going to lose were down to $150 a pop. And they never went that low again for the rest of the playoffs. But can we just talk about fans around here? I wish I would have gone to that game.
Yeah.
It's so cheap.
Yeah.
But, just it's funny how the way things work. But, I'm glad everybody's getting more into hockey. I mean, it's a great sport.
Did you hear about the rule they set saying, like, they wouldn't let people order off their website from D.C.?
Tampa, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was the Vegas series. I believe that really started to happen.
I think it was the Tampa series.
Well,
first.
and they do that a lot in the playoffs, and I understand that they want the hometown fans to get the tickets first. So I definitely understand.
Yeah,
that,
but did you see former Redskin Chris Baker
Yeah,
on Twitter
the Tampa
trolling?
game. Yeah.
He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he still likes the
Still
Caps.
loves the Caps, man.
I just think that was amazing. Like him Snapchatting or Twittering, whatever, and just getting on board and trolling all the fans. I thought that it was hilarious.
Regardless of, I'm a diehard Caps fan, and Josh, I would say, he's pretty diehard.
Yes, I'm pretty
he's
diehard.
Pretty diehard, but fans are fans around here. They're interesting, that's for sure. But I just love the Caps anyway, so that doesn't matter to me. But as Josh alluded to earlier.
Yeah, so
the two shutout games, rather.
The two shutout games. But backtracking before that, a point where I thought the Caps were probably going to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals is when, after they came off the power play, that goal that they let Killorn score to win the game 3-2, I think.
Yeah, that was in I believe
in Washington.
Game 5, I think. Yeah.
In Washington.
And they got really close too. A few of those games they were within one, where I remember Kuznetsov scored that one ridiculous goal late where he had like no angle and put it in. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But
some of the stuff in that game was crazy, but case in point, they come up big. They do what they need to do and shut them out twice. And I think I cried a little bit when they held the Prince of Wales trophy.
Let me tell you something. Could it have been a better start to Game 7 than an Ovi one-timer from beyond the circles, almost at the blue line, right past Vasilevs? Could it have been any better than that to start the game?
I don't think
was
so.
freaking out.
Yeah.
I was screaming.
Yes.
And,
I was too.
This year, I mean, Burakovsky, as we talked about, came up with two huge goals. Huge goals in that game. We just think back to that series, and I just think I'm a huge Caps fan, and I wanted them to win more than anything, but I just thought Tampa was going to be too much.
Yep, I thought so too. I agree 110%.
I thought but you know what? When it's Magic, and you got something on your side, and it's just... Sometimes they use the term in sports a lot, a team of destiny. And this year, for whatever reason, they just made you believe more and more as it went on. And I told myself, too. Oh, you know what? Well, if they make it to the third round, even if they lose, I'll still be happy because at least they got past. No, that's not true at all. As soon as they got into the third round, I could tell myself that all I want. That was not the case.
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
But Burakovsky came up huge, and, Ovechkin made the choice, which is faux pas to some people, to touch the trophy, which, whatever. I didn't really care about that. I don't believe in those stupid jinxes, but, ended up making past. And then let's talk about...
Wait, before let me hold you right there. Before that, after they won the Eastern Conference, the news started talking about the Caps in 98 getting swept by the Red Wings 4-0, and then I was like, oh boy, they jinxed something again. So that I wasn't listening to that. I was like, I don't want to hear it, because if that happened, I probably would have cried.
Well, but let's talk about the story of the year here.
As much as
the Capitals are, as I am beyond elated.
Yeah.
It made my year. Okay, it made my life so far. But the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, their first year as an NHL team, they managed to make it to the Stanley Cup final. And I was like, oh boy, this might be a test, because they have Marc-Andre Fleury from Pittsburgh. In that series against the Jets, he was going crazy.
Well, and you just want to talk about magic. A first-year expansion team making it to the finals? I mean, how does that even happen? But, also, let's not take this away from them, or rather forget to mention it. the most successful expansion team in the history of professional sports. Ever.
Oh,
Yep. First year championship. But I went into that series a little bit nervous as well because Marc-Andre Fleury. And then how would fate have it that, of course, they have to face Marc-Andre Fleury? And of course, an ex-Penguin.
Yeah.
And, who had been excellent. And, you just couldn't believe it. But it was a crazy series. So we'll get into game one.
That was a dogfight.
That was a frustrating game.
Yeah,
though.
back and forth goals. I think Vegas scored the first goal. We come back and score, and it was crazy. I was sort of mad when they lost that game, but it was back and forth. It was a good hockey game
it was. Yeah. And I'll tell you what ticked me off the most, though. Their game-winning goal should not have counted, or game-tying goal rather. I think it was.
Oh yeah,
because he got. What's his face?
Reeves.
Ryan
Cross-check.
Cross-checks Carlson in front of the net and then picks up the puck.
That really rubbed me the wrong way.
I really felt like the NHL just didn't want the Caps to win at that point.
And then the game 2 watch party where I was at, there was another cross-check. They called it right away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was ridiculous. But, so goes it. You want to talk about ending a Cinderella run.
Oh, yeah.
They lose game 1. And they just didn't look back from there. I mean, the next 4 games, just incredible. I couldn't believe it was happening. I've waited my entire life. I'm 27 years old. Been watching the Caps since I was very, very young. And, I remember the Yager days.
Oh, yeah.
With the Caps. That's a long time ago.
I watched him play for Florida one year.
Oh, he's played forever. Yeah. Dude's an ageless wonder. But,
he has a nice mullet, by the way.
But you look at this series. From game 2 on, it's just, you just couldn't believe it. I mean, you look at the Capitals, and it was a magical season. I mean, everything went right for them, it seemed. All the bounces that they never got in the past, they were getting. I mean, skipping ahead a little bit to game 5 in Vegas. Game 5 in Vegas.
Yeah, I was like...
Lars Eller picks up a goal. 2 lucky goals in that.
Behind the back.
Brooks Orpik picks it up right at the blue line. It just doesn't go offside.
Yes.
And Pelly picks it up in front. Smith DSP.
Yeah, and he trips and makes it in.
And then the goal, Fleury loses it behind him. The infamous game-winning goal again by the beautiful, beautiful Dane, Lars Eller.
And I screamed.
And he scores. And I just couldn't believe what was going on. I mean, it didn't seem possible. I just couldn't believe it. And when he scored that goal and time started running, that was the longest period of my life, probably going down. But man, let me just say,
I was so happy when they won. I stayed up till 3:30 watching news coverage from NBC4 and NHL Network. I mean, I could not get to sleep. I could not believe it.
And Josh, I know you have me on here to talk about the Caps, but I want you to just describe the moment that we know we're both thinking about right now. When Lord Stanley, that clock ticked down, and then we knew the inevitable time. Take it away.
Oh, man. Alex Ovechkin deserved that. He got to hold the Conn Smythe Trophy. I don't think he was as excited holding the Conn Smythe Trophy as he was holding the Stanley Cup. And let me tell you, after that night, I think the Washington Capitals were drunk for days.
Yeah. Their sobriety was in question. I mean, there were many videos of them partying in the streets, but just me and Josh, we could talk. I mean, the moment of Ovechkin picking up that cup was just that is the stuff you'll never forget for the rest of your life. There's pure joy, and just of him that was incredible. But it was great, and we wish we had a little more time, but we're gonna get it wrapped up here. But what a year for the Capitals, and we can't wait for next year.
Yep. But next time on this podcast, I'd like to get in more about the off-season moves with Josh and Barry Trotz leaving. Unfortunately, that was a sad situation, but that is for another podcast. It was just like we had to pay a price somehow. Like it just had to fall on the DC Sports. But that's all for another episode. But Thank you so much, Josh, for coming into the studio again. I really do appreciate it, and I hope everybody has enjoyed this episode of the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and hopefully the next episode will be coming out soon. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at jkirby696 and Kirby on Sports. Until next time, I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you so much and hope everybody has a great evening. Kirby out.